Okay. It was not just rallies that Donald Trump did this weekend. He was also interviewed by Fox News' Mark Levin. Now, if you don't know who Mark Levin is, he's almost like a protege of Sean Hannity. If you can imagine, as propagandistic and perverse and depraved as Sean Hannity is, Mark Levin is a guy that Hannity for years referred to as the great one. The interview was arguably as disconnected from reality as any interview Donald Trump has previously done. After Donald Trump went on a completely absurd rant about water, Mark Levin tells him, you know what I like about you? You're not an ideologue. Irony is dead. It's dead. Take a look.
You would have so much water in California. You'd be able, all those fields that are open. I mean, I've never seen anything. You're driving down the highway and everything's like really terrible looking. And then you'll have this gorgeous patch of green. That's the only area they have the water. They're allowed like this tiny amount of water. That whole thing could be farmland. But they send the water out into the Pacific Ocean.
You know, it's
a long story, but there are many, many stories like that. The stupidity of it all.
As I listen to you in these different areas, you're not an ideologue. It's common sense.
Can you imagine seeing Donald Trump attack people on the left who aren't even in charge for everything from not raking forests to not giving Trump enough water pressure to flush his toilets? Why Trump needs to flush 10 to 15 times, I don't know. And then saying, you know, what I like about you is you're not ideological. I have no idea how this next comment makes sense. Donald Trump seemingly talking about Chicago and then jumps right into Afghanistan. It's almost like it is a verbal ink blot, I think is the right term.
Look at Chicago where 58 people were shot. This isn't like where there was a fight. This is where shot, right? Shot. And now the reports are 58 people were shot this weekend in Chicago, 10 died. Okay, let's get on to the weather. How's the weather? They've gotten almost used to it. 58 people. So we're pulling out of Afghanistan, as you know. We're very close to getting out.
Does anybody see the connection? Media coverage of 58 people shot in Chicago is related to pulling out of Afghanistan? Is this adult ADHD? Is it cognitive decline? Is it ignorance? Is it panic? And then Trump continuing his brutal assault on water, on and on and on, now going on about a massive valve. And Mark Levin just sits there nodding like this makes sense. Trump also talking about a very small fish.
And yet they have no water. And they're going to ration for everybody. And all they have to do is let the water come down. You know what they do with the water? They send it out into the Pacific Ocean. They have this massive valve up north. And as the water comes pouring down from the snow and all beautiful, nice, clean water, they send it out. Because there's a tiny little fish that they're trying to save that's doing very poorly, by the way. I think it's a smelt. Tiny little fish. Doing very poorly, doing much worse now without the water. I mean, I don't know, you'd think you'd do better with the water, but they have this massive valve, and they turn this massive, takes a whole day to turn it, and all that water comes, and it comes pouring, and you know where it goes? Into the Pacific. But Kevin McCarthy sees me and says, do you think you could work on the water? We can't get any water for the farms.
The rantings of a madman, truly. Then Trump again raising the topic of explosive trees.
So let's just talk. I just left, as you know, California. I met with the governor, and he, and honestly, he's been very nice with the words, and that's good. But I said, you gotta manage this. It's a management thing. He said, no, it's global warming. But I said, when the leaves build up, and you have a floor of leaves, and the trees fall down, and you don't remove them because the environmentalists don't want you to touch the tree, within 18 months, that tree gets to be like a matchstick. It gets to be unbelievably flammable. And I meet with foreign leaders of countries, and they have an expression, sir, we are a forest nation. But they say, we have trees that are far more explosive than the trees in California.
Do you think that after the interview is over, Mark Levin says, what the hell happened? What on earth was Donald Trump talking about? Because Mark Levin is a horrible ideologue, but he's not an idiot in the way that Donald Trump is. Does Mark Levin get it, do you think? At one point, the topic of Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, came up, and Trump said if it were up to Bolton, we'd be in World War V right now.
Say this, John Bolton was a very stupid person. If I listened to John Bolton, we'd be in World War V right now.
I guess in this imaginary nightmare, Trump would be responsible for World Wars III and IV, but Bolton would have gotten us into World War V. And then Mark Levin just nodding as if this makes sense. And then speaking of people Trump used to work with, Trump again referenced people being fired like dogs.
I disagree with Mattis very much. He was fired by President Obama. He was fired like a dog. He was fired.
Does Donald Trump know what dogs are? We know Trump doesn't relate to his children normally. My guess is Trump wouldn't relate to dogs normally either. What does fired like a dog even mean? And then last one, Trump the victim. Here is poor Trump whining to Mark Levin like Mark Levin is his mommy about how everybody treats him so unfairly.
The Washington Post is a disaster. You can't get a good story. It's disgusting. And then you go to ABC. NBC probably is the worst of all. Comcast, I call it Comcast, not Comcast. It's a con job because they always try and protect their name, like how legitimate they are. NBC is horrible. CBS is a disaster. And then you go into the real beauties, that MSDNC as we call it. And, of course, CNN. But at least CNN, you know where they're coming from. You know they're stone cold dishonest. At least you know that. So it's a sad thing. I mean, it's a very sad thing. Fortunately, local press is extremely good. I get great local. Whenever I stop for a speech, I do one or two local reporters. These are the greatest stories. It's like unbelievable. They cover it so good. Actually, they're almost more enthusiastic than I am. And so we have that. We have some honest media. Fox is good, but Fox is not what it was. I'll be very honest with you. I don't know. They've become politically correct. You know, they think it's wonderful. They have more Democrats on than they have Republicans. I'm complaining about it all the time. You know, with all of that being said, we're doing much better than we did 4 years ago.
Tough being a billionaire president of the United States, right? Everybody treats you so poorly. Really a tough situation for Donald Trump. These interviews are of real, bona fide sociological value, propaganda value. It's not journalism, but hugely relevant for propaganda studies.